Hi and welcome to the Bramley Apple YouTube channel. Today I will show you the Voigtländer Nokton 58mm f1.4. The lens hood is not the original one. This brand is not very well known, but the lenses are manufactured by Cosina in Japan, in the very same factories where the Zeiss lenses are built, so quality and optical performance are top-notch. I bought the Voitlander for last Christmas. Me and my wife need an excuse to spend so much money on a single toy, so we have to make it look as a gift from the partner. But it is just a way to buy ourselves something really special at least once or twice a year. It is important not to waste money on something useless that's going to be hated. Why did I buy this lens when I had already many other 50mm lenses, particularly the incredible Summicron-M 50mm you can see here? Because it is a special lens that gives unique results. I had to listen the numerous videos of the angry photographer and others on YouTube over and over again before being convinced I really needed this lens. And I still had to wait 6 months more before buying it, to reach Christmas, just to make double sure. This was not an impulse buy, it was properly planned and researched. I knew what to expect, but nevertheless I was surprised by the results. There is really something special about this lens, something that I can't put my finger on, but it's definitely there. I was working on the pictures from my last shooting with Lenne some days ago, and I reached a particular series of images where the model was standing in a window light coming from one side that was creating a beautiful 3D effect. But there was something more. The scene was so real that I was convinced she was about to start talking to me. I was so impressed by this picture that I had to check what lens I used to shoot it, because I didn't remember after so many days, and I found out it was the Voigtlander. This is not the first time I get so excited about the picture I've taken with this lens, and I hope I will never get used to the quality it can provide. At this point, I don't care if other lenses are more sharp, with less coral fringes, or any other bullshit. What I really like about this lens is how real the picture appears. The 3D effect is giving you the impression of being there with the model, and you find yourself preparing the other senses to participate in the encounter. My proof of how good a Zeiss lens is based on the rendering of the skin. If by looking at the picture you feel as if you are touching the skin of the model for real, you are using a really good lens, usually from Zeiss. But with the Voigtlander, you also expect the model to speak to you and to have a proper feedback from all of your senses. The impression of being there with the model when you see the picture is the whole point of my photography, so a lens that can help in giving this impression is of great value for me. You may prefer a sharp and technical modern lens if you want to render an architecture in an abstract way, but for people, portraits and particularly nude, I much prefer the organic feel that this lens is giving me. Let's try and examine the lens to understand how it can achieve this likeness to reality. Maybe we can find out where the magic lies. Actually, we can also compare it with another f1.4 lens I have. This is a 50mm autofocus from Nikon. The build quality is very high on the Voigtlander. Focusing gives a smooth and long rotation that you can control with maximum precision, whilst the Nikon is a plasticky construction with a very poor manual focusing experience. This is not a defect. It is just a characteristic of the lens. It has to be built so light and flimsy to help out the autofocus mechanism. Manual focusing with such a lens is just an afterthought, and usually a bad idea. The number of aperture blades and their shape is very important to give the right bokeh to a lens. The bokeh is the render of the autofocus areas. The more blades you have in a lens, and the more their shape is rounded, the more you're likely to get those rounded autofocus point of light and the beautiful bokeh that everybody loves. Also, when you have to close down the aperture of the lens. The point of light are just a clue to find out the shape of the aperture blades, and might spoil the aesthetics of the picture. But the same deformation is going to affect all of the autofocus elements, also in the shadows and the medium tones. The bokeh is down to optics alone, just at full aperture. When you start stopping down the lens, the mechanical nature of the aperture becomes part of the equation. Now we will look at the difference between these three lenses. We start with the 50mm from Nikon, the autofocus, and you can see the aperture blades there, and we have 7 blades, and you can see the shape of the aperture is very clear. Then we have the Leica lens, the Summicron. In this case we have 8 blades, also these are not very rounded. In fact, the quality of this lens is very high, but it is not particularly well known for a good bokeh. If you want a good bokeh from a Leica lens, you better buy the Summilux, which is the 1.4. This is as a maximum aperture, or f2. All the Summicron have. And then we have the Voigtlander. And the Voitlander, you can see the aperture is always very rounded at every aperture. The shape is particularly round. So this is going to give you the best possible results and the best possible bokeh. And these are only 9 blades, so 7 blades, 8 blades, and this is 9 blades, but also the shape of the blades is much more rounded, and so you obtain a very special and very perfect shape of the whole. And obviously there is also the optics. And the optics is something completely different, and I prefer the look of the Voigtlander, which is the best bokeh I've ever seen. Nothing wrong with the picture of the 50mm, but the Voigtlander is a much better lens and gives unique results. I will still use the Nikon when I need to work faster and with autofocus on the D810 DSLR camera. But for manual focusing on the Mirrorless Lumix S1, the Voigtlander is a much better lens. I could even consider using the Voigtlander on the D810, but not at larger aperture, as it is not so easy to focus on a DSLR with a large aperture. Possibly I would try the intermediate apertures for studio work and with strobes. I'm pretty sure it will be a brilliant lens to use in those conditions. It is also one full stop faster than the Summicron-M, which I'd rather keep permanently glued to my Leica M240 anyway. The Voigtlander is going to be used mainly on the Lumix S1 and will give me more possibilities to blur the background and more precision in focusing with such a shallow depth of field. The gap between 58 and 50 mm seems very small, but in truth it makes a huge difference. Apparently, the 55 and 58 focal lengths are renowned for creating an alchemy which is impossible to replicate on a 50 mm. And I'm starting to believe it myself. Also, the longer focal length helps in avoiding perspective deformation on the body or on the face of the model. I even managed to take some quite tight portraits without getting the ugly deformed faces you typically get with selfies. Was it indispensable for my nude project? Maybe not, but I'm happy to have it. And it has become my new standard lens in every single shooting. In a previous video I described the break-in process I applied to the Summicron 50mm, but for this lens I didn't think it was necessary. Fortunately, it arrived just in time for a shooting I had planned with Martina, my favorite model. We were in Brescia, alone, in the apartment of a mutual friend. This time I didn't need to find a stranger beauty to make a meaningful imprinting on the new lens. If you ask me, the naked body of Martina provided the best possible defloration. In the description, you can find the usual links to the pictures I made with this lens. I will also add some links of the picture taken with the Nikon 50mm f1.4. Let me know if you can see any difference between the two lenses and which you prefer. Thank you for your time and see you in the next video.